Thank you everyone for joining us on our next quarantine break rather. I'm Kiana Martin, founder of Eat Soccer, and for this session, we're going to learn about sports beyond the numbers that we see on the scoreboard. And I'm fortunate enough to have with us Dr. Thilo Kunkel, who is a professor at Temple University, and he helps people work with numbers for all things sports. He teaches about data, he consults with brands and companies in regards to sports and data, and he conducts research in that field as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So first off, what inspired you to become a sports professor? And can you describe some of the courses that you have taught during your time at Temple University?
Absolutely. I never thought I wanted to become a professor. I just wanted to learn more and more. And after finishing my PhD in the sports business area, I guess that's what you do with a PhD. You become a professor, and all of what you've learned, you now pass it on. So it just fell in my lap, so to speak. And I like discussing ideas with smart people, and that's exactly what we do on a daily basis as a professor. You engage with students who are generally very smart, and you have great new ideas, and that's what keeps it really engaging and interesting.
So walk us through, what is a typical week like for you as a professor?
Normally or in quarantine? So normally
definitely not in quarantine. Hopefully that doesn't become the norm.
It actually, for me, not much has changed. I currently teach one class. It's focused on strategic management, so how sport organizations can set themselves up for future success, how they can deal with external factors such as the coronavirus, and how that can influence their strategy and their profitability as well as their future success. And I teach that twice a week. And beyond that, I'm working on research projects. We just finished a project on quantifying the social media value of student athletes, because the NCAA always makes these big claims that they don't have value beyond their university, and we show that they actually do. Or we work with brands on helping them tell a story and analyzing their investment that they make in sports. So we just finished evaluating the sponsorship of a large European car manufacturer on an event, and how that event then impacted people's perception of the car company. And so they got a little bit of their return on investment. So we work with that client. Or we just finishing off work with the NBA AllStar game, as in looking at how much value and how much media exposure did that AllStar game bring to the city of Chicago. So those are lots of different clients, entities, and stakeholders that we engage with on a weekly basis. So the teaching is actually only a small part of my daily life, and I can do that online now. I engage with students via Zoom. I can upload all of my content. I shoot some videos and engage with them that way. So from a teaching perspective, really not much has changed. And from a research perspective, really nothing has changed. All I need is a laptop, internet connection, and my software and data. And that's where the nerd comes into play, as in we do like data. We engage with it on a daily basis, but mostly on the business side rather than I know there's a lot of data that's collected on the player's performance. That's not my expertise. I've done a little bit of work on that, but I'm more on the business side. So sponsorship, return on investment, and then big picture thinking, okay, how do we see our organization next 5 years? What do we need to do there? So that's really my daily life.
So to piggyback on one of the things you talked about in regards to this change that we're currently all experiencing with the quarantine, how have brands been consulting with you all about how are they going to be able to move forward with their sports product if everybody is in the house and they're not able to, attend matches and go to games and cheer for their athletes and teams in the same way?
I mean, a lot of them are scrambling, as in, okay, well, what is next, and how? A lot of them are really looking into when can we really get our product as we have it? When can we get it back out to our consumers? How can we bridge that gap? But the really proactive ones are looking into, okay, well, if we can't do this, what can we do in the meantime? So we see NBA is really one of the really progressive ones, and I talked to their international team. So they had some international game series canceled, but they basically said, look, we're engaging our consumers via social media now. We're really looking at some alternative ways. And once we are up and running again, I think there's a lot of potential for sport organizations to say, well, because the tourism industry is impacted as much as the sport industry, and sport events can really drive some of the tourism as well down the road. And I can tell you, as soon as we're out of this quarantine, people will spend money. They're like, well, we don't have money right now, but you know what? I don't care. I'm going to spend it this month or this summer. I'm going to have that experience, because you never know when that next Corona lockdown or some other pandemic lockdown comes. People will want that experience. So I think a lot of these sport events will actually be used by destinations around the world, essentially, to drive some of their tourism, drive some of their business goals. And that's where these host cities are looking to us and see, okay, well, can you help us with examining that return on investment that we're making in these sport events? That's a lot of our expertise.
So you focus your research on sports brands, marketing, and fans. Can you share some of the interesting data that you've discovered, whether it's about the viability of these collegiate athletes and their brands, or about sports or fans from the work that you've done, like data points that maybe the average fan may not even think about, that are kind of eye-opening for you based on your research?
Yeah, certainly from a research, particular with the social media areas that we're looking at, is that what you see is the engagement that a lot of these college athletes are getting far exceeds that engagement that a lot of professional athletes are getting, because the college athlete has such a targeted audience. So we can really see that their engagement far exceeds that of a lot of the professional players, where some college athletes still have the number of following that also far exceeds the professional athletes. So we see that from an influencer marketing perspective, they would actually have a lot more value than some of the ones in the pros. So if I'm a brand, I'm really hoping for that 2023 California fair pay to play act really is going to hit, where I'm going to start marketing my brands through college athletes. I'm going to pay them, and I'm probably get away with getting a lot more return on investment than if I am going to engage with professional athletes. So I think what we see here is that the market for that influencer marketing is going to open up a lot more, and it's going to provide a lot of opportunities for brands to engage their audience, to reach a really specific target market, but then also for college athletes to make some money beyond just that scholarship.
Okay, and speaking to that, what are the type of career opportunities that you foresee opening up as a result of people looking at the data side of the sports business, and where are those opportunities with athlete brands and things like that?
I think particularly in a digital world, and that's a really good question in terms of, we've seen with teams, well, if you're a team and you have 3, 4, 5 people in your digital social media branding side, that's a solid marketing team. But that means you have 5 people per team. Now, what we see is that these individual athletes starting to employ their own social media management team. So from a brand management perspective, I see a lot of opportunities for professional whether it's students or professionals, to really break into that brand management of individual athletes. I think that market is growing exponentially, because you think about it, one one brand manager per team, whereas there are 20 athletes on a team. So now you increase that need from 1 to 20 immediately. That's a massive growth. And I think that there's a lot of potential there. And I actually, at Temple University, we just talked about that a few weeks ago, and looking at seeing that as a huge growth market and making sure that we cater to our students like that. So in one of the classes that I teach, it's focused on ethical business decisions, but I always make sure that any business decision is made by an individual. So how can athletes use ethical business decisions in order to build their brand? So I basically build a whole block of that seminar is built on how do athletes build their brand, how do they engage an audience, how can we quantify that? So if you have 20,000 followers and you get 2,200 likes on average, what's that worth for a sponsor? So that's looking into really quantifying and using data to drive business decisions. Those are the things we're looking at, trying to prepare our students for the industry in that way.
How do you see, with the influx of everyone having access to all of these platforms, you notice that athletes even younger, as young as 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, they're developing their own brands. So do you think that trend is going to continue? Are they too going to need a brand manager? And oftentimes it's their parents. And how is that going to continue to affect the landscape when it comes to teams, brands, sponsors, and opportunities for people to work in that kind of arena?
I think it's going to increase. I think it's going to put more pressure on what we call these traditional influencers, whether those are celebrities or those are musicians, actors, those athletes that are playing at the highest level. We will see that kids or followers and consumers will place and are currently already placing as much value on the opinion of someone that they just know via social media because they can do some cool trick shots. And they place more value on that than on someone who plays at the professional level, because that person has been able to build an authentic personality, an authentic brand of themselves. So that concept of brand authenticity is really one aspect that we've been looking more into lately within influencer marketing, as in, are they, as an influencer, are they really portraying who they are? And I think this whole trend is going to place a lot more pressure on professional athletes to stay relevant as influencers and as marketing vehicles for big brands.
For students that are interested in maybe getting their feet wet now with building a brand, be it their personal athletic brand or working with maybe their classmates who are athletes to develop their brand, what are some best practices that you would suggest based on your research?
I mean, obviously, and that's not based on research, but keep it positive. That's usually a good start. If you need to rant, do that to your friends. Don't put that on social. But then I think we hear a lot of, here are the things not to do. But there's a lot of things to do, as in when we think about an athlete brand, there are these categories, as in what's your personality, your look does matter, and your appearance does matter. I hate to say it, but we live in a visual world. Consider that. Not everyone is pretty or based on what society deems pretty, but everyone is unique. So what is your unique feature? And what's your unique personality? What's your unique background? What makes you you? So that, and that comes back to that authenticity. So why would people watch and why would people follow? It's oftentimes what makes them connect with you, as in, can they see themselves in who you are? And that's a lot of that. Providing insights into your background is helpful, but then also a lot of athletes are doing really good work in their communities, whether we see it now with Corona. I actually work on a company, on a startup where we help athletes brand themselves. It's a social media platform where they can they get some guidance on what type of content they should upload, where they should upload it, how they should present it. But we just launched an initiative where we highlight athletes who are contributing to the fight against Corona. So we see athletes from around the world that are coming together, they're collecting donations, they're raffling off prizes, they are engaging in their community. And even if it's as minor as, well, I helped this person do their grocery shopping, that's still something that people value. And then if athletes are doing something nice for their community, we as followers are generally more likely to connect with them personally, as well as see them as role models. And that's certainly part of, when you link it back to that data-driven approach, when we examine athletes and athlete brands, the more athletes are seen as a role model, the more people also have a positive attitude towards them. So I think that brings it full circle, as in what you can do, we can examine, and it helps the athlete. It doesn't only help, not only does it help society, but also the athlete. So it's a win-win situation here.
How do you select the topics that you choose to do research on? Is it based on your own interests, or is it driven by the brands that you consult with?
It's a combination of both. Generally, it's what I see as relevant, what I see as impactful. I don't like to conduct research just for the academic ivory tower and no one ever reads it, but I made a really strong contribution to 4 people in the world down the road. It's really about, what do I think is a really important issue or question that we have in society that I think is going to help people, that knowledge. So that to me is my responsibility as a professor, as giving back to making the research that I conduct, making it really relevant. So generally with the brands that I consult with is also driven by that research interest. This is what I've built to become an expert over the last 10, 15 years. So I only want to work with brands if I can really offer them my expertise. So it's all connected and all links back to, do I think it's beneficial? Do I think it's an interesting project? And does it make a difference to people?
What has been one of your favorite consulting projects that you've done, and why?
2 that I am working on right now, as one is the Laver Cup, which is a tennis tournament that rotates between Europe and the United States. And it's Team Europe playing against Team World, and it has Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal, so the top players. And it's a really exciting concept. So I love being part of that family, so to speak, because the people behind it, they have an amazing concept, really exciting. Another project that I mentioned earlier is the NBA draft, the NBA AllStar game. I love basketball, and the way that they are working on, that they conduct in that event, that's just phenomenal. So I really like those 2. But from a meaning perspective, I've been helping an athlete in 2014. I mean, it's a long time ago now, but we've been conducting a project focused on fighting Ebola, because he's from Sierra Leone originally. Then there was an Ebola outbreak. We raised some funds for Doctors Without Borders. From there on, we raised more funds, created more publicity, and we're able to build a school in Sierra Leone based on the funds that we raised. And to me, that's really meaningful. And I still work with him, and we became friends. But to me, that initial work, as in, here's some data that shows the impact that we're having, and then we're able to get other stakeholders involved and them contributing to that cause and building a school. To me, that's invaluable, as in that to me is that's where I can help much more, help telling that story and helping athletes that have the platform tell that story, because people listen when the athletes talk. My role is more, rather than talking for them, my role is helping them tell their story in a more meaningful way, or in a way that is more impactful.
Out of curiosity, to go back to the NBA AllStar Weekend, I know across the board, a lot of basketball fans really enjoyed this past year's version in Chicago. Was there any particular data or research that made this particular one stand out from, say, some of the other times that they've hosted in other cities?
I think a few aspects really contributed to this. I think it was really meaningful to a lot of people. Kobe Bryant tributes, and then the change towards using basketball as a platform to give back, as in the charity aspect of each quarter, the team can donate to Chicago-based organizations. So to me, that really helped with telling the story and showing the impact. From a data perspective, there we see a huge impact of the media side. So the NBA it just has such a huge reach around the world from their social media perspective. So we see that they've really reached a lot of stakeholders and were able to engage their fans in a way. But I do think it links back to the engaging new content and then their changes in their format, as well as the meaning that is behind that they were able to integrate in a way that I think is really authentic. It's really telling who they are and what they believe in. And that to me is if a league, a professional organization can make that connection, as in, yes, in the end of the day, we're business. We gotta make money, but there are ways how we can make this impactful. That is really meaningful to me.
So for students that are interested in kind of following your footsteps, be it teaching at the college level about sports, or consulting, or conducting research, what are some resources that they can look into now to see what the opportunities are out there for them to pursue?
I think there's a lot of to start out with. There's a lot of free newsletters out there that I can really recommend. Is like whether that's the front office sport newsletter or the sport techie. Really sign up to those newsletters, get engaged, and really read up on the sport business side. That's an easy one. It's free. It's great. Beyond that, I mean, at Temple we've focused on sports business. I would argue we're some of the best in the nation because we have that. I mean, I got some great colleagues, but then also we are based in a major city. And a lot of other sport management programs don't have that connection to the professional teams that we have in Philadelphia. So I think from a career perspective, I know our team is always happy to provide some guidance. But then I think just reaching out to even not just the recruiters, reach out to professors. We are all pretty approachable. I mean, our information is out there, and we generally don't have a stake as in, well, we want to guide you in a specific direction. It's more of an, hey, like, reach out to us, scroll through the website of universities in your area and just say, hey, I'm interested in this. Do you have any recommendation? I would say, I'd say probably 50% will at least reply, and that's a pretty good rate on free consulting or free guidance. I mean, you never know what you're gonna end up with. I mean, we met at one networking event. We stayed in contact, and I think to me, it's like get involved, use LinkedIn, use Instagram, follow some of these professionals in the industry. That's really where you engage with them. Ask some meaningful questions, make a comment, maybe even add a like to a Twitter, to a tweet, or to an Instagram post. I mean, that goes a long way in building relationships with professionals. And they notice. They may not reply right away, but they notice. And it's about building relationships. That's really what this industry is. I mean, it's all about. You got to back it up with knowledge, but relationships really make a big difference.
If there is a dream research or consulting project you would love to take on, what would it be and why?
Yes, there is, and we are, as I said, I work on it already, so I'm pretty fortunate with that, and it's really pushing I don't want to say agenda, but understanding the impact of college athletes being allowed to monetize their name, image, and likeness, because I personally believe they have a right to. I believe that it's actually going to open up a lot of potential opportunities for the NCAA that they don't see at the moment. And I do think that it's a lot of college athletes may realize, well, maybe I'm actually pretty well off with my stipend, and people don't pay that much money for seeing me play or following me.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can add a few $100s or a few $1,000s into the pocket of these athletes because of their connections, why not? No one is losing. It's a particularly those athletes that come from underrepresented communities. To me, that's really meaningful. If I can have some sort of role in helping and pushing that, then that's my dream project, and hopefully with some sort of positive outcome in the end.
Do you anticipate, I know you mentioned 2023 is when people think the wave is going to change when it comes to these stipends and college athletes. Do you think with the speed with which so many things are changing already that 2023 is too far off, that we'll see some changes before that?
I hope we will, but I'm not sure. I really hope, because there's a lot of pressure. Obviously, the crisis right now is it had a big impact on the March Madness, which is how the NCAA makes 90% of their revenue. That will impact a lot of scholarships down the road. So that certainly is going to it's going to impact the discussion, where people may not push as hard if that also means that there may be some. That's the NCAA. They will probably use some of these scholarship discussions to their advantage in the negotiation process, because that's really all they have at this point. But we'll see. I hope it will be earlier, and they will reach some consensus and some solutions. But we will get there, I think.
Do you think that, I know this past week it's been floating around that one of the youngest member of the Ball family is in negotiations to purchase a professional team in Australia. Do you think actions like that by younger athletes taking kind of the ball in their own hands, if that's going to make things happen faster?
I mean, he's in a very unique situation, coming from a basketball family with millions of dollars. Not many college athletes are in that situation. I mean, him going to Australia and playing professional, I think he's shown that, because he's still ranked really high in the draft rankings, I think it shows that you don't need to play college in the United States in order to be ranked really high. I mean, you do for football, because that's the only country that plays it, but you don't for basketball. And that may open opportunities for other basketball players, and say, look, I'm going to Spain, I'm going to Croatia, Turkey, Germany, or Australia, and I'm play there for a year, make some money, support my family, and then still enter at a really high range. I know there are some leagues that are entering the market. I know the professional college league is pushing into, where it's a startup league that are still paying students to attend college, but they're paying. So there's some novel projects and some interesting ideas floating around that are definitely putting some pressure on the NCAA to change, to stay relevant. But in the end of the day, it's really the big schools that, if you can get Alabama, if you can get a Clemson or a Duke, if you can get buy-in from those schools to say, no, we're actually supporting this, then those are voices that are heard. The individual athlete voice is not heard, particularly because those athletes that have a lot of followers, they're going pro anyway. If they do it now or a year, they're not going on strike, because that will jeopardize it. And those without any following, without the voice, they're not going pro anyway, but they're also not, no one really cares about them, as in from the NCAA perspective. so their voice is not as heard as much. So we're in that situation where those who are heard are not really speaking up because it's jeopardizing their own future. So I think the change will really need to be driven either by a union, by external law, or by some of the biggest stakeholders, whether, as I said, whether that's whether that's Clemson, Duke, Temple should, as well as in those that are really household names, or some of the biggest sponsors, whether you're a Nike, whether you're an Adidas, though they would have some sort of interest as well. So they're going to be putting pressure on, because in the end of the day, those with money and power will have their say, and hopefully they'll push us into the right direction.
Lastly, what's the best piece of career advice that you would offer to your younger self?
Sometimes you don't have to work on a Saturday night. I think it's a good advice to work hard, but also it's important to take time off of work and smell the roses every now and then. I think we'll all be working until we're gonna be old, right? We're gonna be 100 years old at least, the way medicine is going. Well, unless Corona takes its part, but we're gonna be old. So we're gonna work we got another, I don't know, 70 years to go. Like, we got a lot of time to work. It's not like 50 years ago where the life expectations were 65 and then you were gone. So I think we have a lot of time to really make that career, and you don't need to be the general manager when you're 30. It's still fine if you're when you're 45, if you're 50, or if you never make it, as long as you're happy. I think those career goals and benchmarks are really all in our head. And whether it takes a year longer or not, in the end, make sure you're happy with what you're doing. And it may mean work less, may mean make less money, but in the end, it's really a job that should support your lifestyle and not vice versa.
Thank you so much. Where can people learn more about you and your work online?
I guess the hub is thilokunkel.com. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, always happy to connect, to provide some guidance. The Temple website has a lot of has a lot of information on my research. So there's a lot of outlets there. So feel free to connect and reach out. I'm always happy to engage.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for tuning in to this quarantine break. We'll be back at it on Friday morning at 10 a.m. You can check the website, quarantinebreak.com, to find out the list of panelists that we'll have on Friday. Thank you again, Professor Kunkel. I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. That was really exciting.
Have a great
wonderful day. Take care.
You too.